Pete Hegseth tries to hold on to his job as the Democrats continue their attack across all fronts with zero reason, purpose, or facts behind them. Welcome to the Doug TenNapel channel. First, this is a clip from over Easter weekend on the targeting of Pete Hegseth and specifically about leaks coming from within our military institutions. This largely only happens to Trump because of the division within. You've got a lot of Democrats working in the Pentagon, working at the IRS, working at the FBI, working at the CIA. And Democrats, they have no code, they have no work ethic in general. I'm making a general statement. Let's watch.
The president stands strongly behind Secretary Hegseth, who is doing a phenomenal job leading the Pentagon. And this is what happens when the entire Pentagon is working against you and working against the monumental change that you are trying to implement. Secretary Hegseth was nominated for this position because he is standing up for the war fighter, the men and women in uniform who are putting their lives on the line to protect our country and our homeland. And unfortunately, there have been people at that building who don't like the change the secretary is trying to bring. So they are leaking and they are lying to the mainstream media. We've seen this game played before. The secretary is doing a tremendous job and the president stands strongly behind him.
This is one of the leakers. When she talks about leakers, this is one of them. And in this case, it wasn't a Democrat. They're also rhinos. This is a Republican. Now, this is a huge division within MAGA, or at least between MAGA and the Republican Party. This guy was on Tucker Carlson. He was one of the guys that was fired for leaking. I'm only saying what you call a good guy or a bad guy. I don't know how well that applies to this guy. I'm only saying this is him giving himself a defense, saying how outrageously incompetent all of the Pentagon is. He's brought in chaos. Doesn't mean it's all true. I want to hear the other side of this guy.
Sitting here right now, there are a lot of unknowns about this. As a former Secretary of Defense would say, there's a lot of unknown unknowns. There are some things that are pretty clear, but we have no idea what specifically we're being investigated
So
for.
we can know some things just by the details. So here are a couple. Have you been polygraphed?
No, I've never been hooked up to a polygraph machine since I've been in the Department of Defense.
Okay. Have you given up your private communications devices, your private phone, your phone?
No.
To anybody?
No.
Okay. So that raises the obvious question. I'm trying not to use the F word here because the lying is just driving me insane. You're being accused of leaking classified information, but the people accusing you would have no way of knowing whether you did that or not because they haven't polygraphed you or taken your devices, your private devices, correct?
I mean, there are.
You can't even make the allegation because there's no conceivable way you can prove
just say
that.
there's
So, but just back to your story, and I won't linger on it. Every time I mention this, your jaw tightens. I can feel your frustration. And I should just say point blank.
Frustrated you.
Well, I'm completely convinced that this is nonsense and sinister nonsense. But if you were the subject of an investigation, a leak investigation, if the investigators had determined that you were leaking classified information to the news media, you probably wouldn't have continued to receive access to classified information, correct?
Correct, and I probably wouldn't be sitting here today.
You'd be in jail, dude. You would have been handcuffed, correct?
If I had leaked, well, again, I just want to be clear here. I still don't know if the term they used is, and that you see the DOD using, is unauthorized release of information. If I think there's a lot of rumors and people are exploiting this that we can talk about. If I actually did some of the things that anonymous people on the internet and in the Pentagon are saying I did, I'd be in handcuffs.
Okay, they said that he released unauthorized information. This is one of the examples of leaks getting out. This is a good guy, at least according to Tucker Carlson, is pitching him as a good guy being framed by the Pentagon. So someone over there, Hegseth's boys, needs to take a look. That guy got fired. Let's look at what you don't get fired for by our military. So I'm going to turn the sound down on it. Okay. This is a parade of our Afghanistan military, the stuff that Joe Biden and Lloyd Austin gave to the Afghanis, which would be used by hostile forces against our allies. So $80 billion worth of hardware was handed over to them. And that, I don't know if that includes the airport But the airport that we also put billions of dollars into to build, we just fled that and turned it over to Afghanistan. The reason why I bring this up, just that this happened under Lloyd Austin and with Joe Biden's guys, not one person got fired for the fiasco that is our leaving Afghanistan. Remember where the guys were hanging off the airplanes and falling to the ground? Hundreds of people. We lost 13 of our soldiers. Not one person lost their job or came out and apologized. And now they're hunting after Pete Hegseth for allegedly sharing a message with his wife or his sister-in-law or something. But just look at all, I'm just showing you the hardware, guys. Let this, all those dollar signs going by, hand it over to an enemy for free. Look at all the tech they could reverse engineer. They send this tech straight over to China and China reverse engineers it. China would pay for that. And some of these weapons ended up over in Ukraine also, by the way. Now, Sonny Hostin, disturbed Sonny Hostin on Pete Hegseth.
There's quite a double standard because he's standing by Hegseth. But if you remember, he sang a different tune when he called for America's first black defense attorney, Lloyd Austin.
Black defense attorney, first black Lloyd Austin. You hear the implication in that? It's because he was the first black one. In other words, if he was white, he'd still have his job.
Appointed by President Biden in 2021 to resign after he failed to disclose that he had undergone a surgical operation to treat prostate cancer. And he was kind of gone for about 4 days.
Kind of gone for a month before people knew about him, his treatment.
Saying that that was good either. But I don't think those two things are the same because Trump said Austin should be fired immediately for improper professional conduct and dereliction of duty. If that was the case then President Trump, that's the case now.
Wait, but Pete Hegseth has not performed dereliction of duty. Even if he illegally sent a message to his wife, sharing intelligence is not dereliction of duty. Lloyd Austin was dereliction of duty in the hospital, okay, for 4 days under surgery, out cold, getting this prostate surgery or whatever, and sick and out of the office to where no one knew where he was. That's a dereliction of duty. When you're in other theaters in the with your military, and there's not a guy at the top, there's not a guy in charge. There's a big difference there, Sonny. Keep cheering. This is Tim Pool on the Maryland Man hoax, where the media keep using the phrase Maryland Man on the MS-13 gang member. And he's calling out the press themselves in this room.
Many of the news organizations that are represented in this room have marched in lockstep on false narratives, such as the Very Fine People hoax, the Covington smear, and now what's being called the Maryland Man hoax, where an MS-13 gang member adjudicated by 2 different judges, I believe, is just simply being referred to as a Maryland Man over and over again. Now, in an effort from the White House to expand access to new companies, you've created this new media seat. So I'm wondering if you can comment on, following this expansion, you've had numerous outlets disparage the companies that you've had sit here, as well as the reporters. I'm wondering if you could comment on the unprofessional behavior, as well as elaborate if there's any plans to expand access to new companies.
Sure. Well, we certainly welcome diverse viewpoints in this room, which is one of the reasons we have you in here. And there's many new faces in this room in comparison to the previous administrations. We want to welcome all viewpoints into this room. We welcome unbiased journalists who really care about the truth and the facts and the accuracy. And you rightfully pointed out the Maryland Man story, which I, from this podium, when The Atlantic published it on that very first day, I came to this podium and said, this is wrong. The press in this room have this story wrong. And we have seen more and more evidence come to the table that we have had all along. We were always right. The president was always on the right side of this issue to deport this illegal criminal from our community. And it is despicable to see the media continue to refer to this individual as someone who is just a peaceful man living his life in Maryland. This was and always has been an illegal criminal, an MS-13 gang member, and a designated foreign terrorist. And the administration maintains our position to deport these individuals from our community.
I just want to point out that he's a fellow YouTuber. You know, he's a new media guy, huge over there in the corner. And now he's got a spot with the mainstream press, just like CBS News or ABC. And it's important for him to have that spot. What the American public needs to know about Mike Flynn, how the FBI knew he was innocent and wouldn't give him the information.
Look, Nancy Pelosi and company wanted to turn downtown Washington, D.C. into downtown Kandahar. They literally called, and I was there with the chief, as chief of staff for DOD. They called the SecDef and the chairman, and Pelosi said, "We want tanks." And we said, "What? You want an A1 Abrams tank? Where are we going to put this, Madam Speaker? And are we going to use a tank on American citizens at the United States Capitol? Of course not." So we didn't do it, because it was a disgusting politicization of the day. And it shows you the liars that Nancy Pelosi has now been caught in. And these are the people that wanted to kneecap Donald Trump. It's no different, unfortunately, for guys like Mike Flynn, who were illegally unmasked, and his name was sent to the media, which was a felony to disclose that kind of classified information. And then again, what did they do? Just like they did with impeachment 1, they gave a piece of the transcript so they could target someone politically instead of actually using the Constitution to target criminals. And his life was turned upside down. And it wasn't until 3 years later, when I was the deputy director of national intelligence, that we declassified all the information the FBI withheld from the American public, because they exposed their corruption. And in it was Mike Flynn's own innocence. They withheld it from him, just like they did during the Russiagate scandal and the FISA court warrant application for Carter Page. This is the DOJ FBI playbook. They will use government tactics and classification systems to hide their corruption. They've done it for years, and Donald Trump's the only force that can break through it. And so all these things stitched together, they might be different acts in different years, but they are all the same cover-up tactics from these government gangsters. And that's why we got to go out there and give the people the truth. That's what we're about. That's what we're doing.
Oh,
Look,
and
Nancy Pelosi
I love the new media getting out there and getting the truth. That's what we're about, trying to get to the bottom of it, including exonerating Mike Flynn, exonerating Pete Hegseth. And I don't know where that's going to land, by the way. The media thinks they've got some giant gotcha on this leaked thing again, which, by the way, he made even before his confirmation. So Trump keeps saying, like, Pete Hegseth's my guy. We have record numbers coming out of military signups in every branch of military, off the charts. Since before 2002, we're having maximum signups now, doing great in all our branches of military. So that alone, I say, Pete Hegseth, thanks for turning it all around. And we'll find out what if the Democrats can make any of these charges stick against them. I don't think so. I think this is just more chaos that they're just throwing out there because they didn't beat Trump. I'm Doug TenNapel. This is the Doug TenNapel Channel.